My guest today is Sid Jashnani, a serial entrepreneur, HoldCo builder, and certified EOS implementer. EOS stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System, which we will cover a lot today. And Sid focuses on helping founders move from operator to owner, freeing their time while multiplying enterprise value, hopefully. So thanks a lot for coming to the podcast, first of all, Sid.
Thanks, Mick, for having me.
I want this podcast today to be extremely practical. Would be awesome if we can make this happen. When doing research, I found on your website that your 10-year target is to build a holding company with over 1 billion in brand equity across your portfolio. So it all started from somewhere. So please, let's start with your story and please give us an overview of the portfolio as well of what you've been building so far.
Yeah, so my company, which I started first, was a system integration company. Essentially, we were putting together networking solutions for enterprises and governments and hospitals and educational institutes. And that's how I started in the space. So, a lot of how you work in the space is through RFPs and tenders. And what happens is people send you these bids and then you fill them up and you win the tender, you execute, customers happy. So I did that for a few years. Almost about 7-8 years of my life was just building the system integration company. And there were times where it was really frustrating and we scaled to a certain level. We had about 35, 40 people at that point in time doing about 3.5, 4 million revenue consistently. But we couldn't break through. And at that time, my target was to be, a $10 million sort of organization. And something wasn't working. We felt stuck somewhere, kind of hit the ceiling or hit the wall. And that's when I kind of discovered EOS. And EOS is just a set of simple, practical tools, business concepts that've just been there for lots of years. And I started dwelling on the tools that are there in this book called Traction. Traction's like the mother book for EOS. It's like the open source manual. You can do it yourself. And I started using the tools from the book, and I wouldn't say magically everything became perfect. No, it was a lot of struggle, a lot of pushback to start using those tools. Essentially, it's about being disciplined, about using a set of tools with a set cadence, which will help you achieve what you want. Right? It's an operating system. You need to use that system in your business to get what you want. So essentially, we started using that system. Life became just a little better. Meetings became a bit crisper. Accountability started, it started becoming a problem because no one was accountable in my business. And when we started putting at the scorecards and measurables for people, we started realizing that all the buck stops at me and no one's really accountable for anything. It's like, that book about 1 minute manager meets the monkey. And that's the book where everyone comes to your office and leaves their problems with you and they go home, but you stuck with the problems. And as the owner of the business, that's how I felt. But with some discipline and consistency and, a bit of help from EOS, we started putting together a structure which was about discipline and consistency. And it was about using processes and systems in our delivery, certain criteria in our bidding process. So what I found was over a couple of years of systemizing my business, things started becoming a little better. We exactly knew what kind of people we needed to hire. We exactly knew what kind of culture we wanted to build in our organization. And we knew what kind of people will support us in our growth as well. So long story short, we took this company from about 3.5, 4 million to about 40 million in about 10 years. And by about 2017, 2018, I exited that business operationally. I still own the company, majority of it, and the rest is owned by employees. And after that, I was like, what should I do next? Because it became quite boring. I just wanted to travel, wanted to move abroad and, take my family with me. So live a bit of a nomadic lifestyle. And I started using sort of remote work for myself to run the company. So I ran the company remotely since 2017. And obviously, we went through COVID and a bunch of other stuff. And we're still intact, we're still growing, and we're still profitable. So around 2017, is when this idea came in my head, like, there is no intellectual property that we have as a system integrator. We buy other people's stuff and we put it together. Sometimes it's always about being the lowest bidder in an RFP where you get selected. So there was no moat. There's no way I could, separate myself from the pack. And again, I would come to this every time I would look at a section in my vision, which was around marketing strategy, which was about what separates me from everyone else out there. And I couldn't come up with something which was articulate, which really stood the test of time. And, I can come up with a lot of bullshit there and write stuff, but when I speak with customers, yes, they love working with us because we have a process, we have a culture, you see the same set of people again and again. But at the end of the day, no one wants to pay extra in an RFP for your culture, for your people. And they say, all that is good, Sid, but can we just get this at this price? I love you, and that's why I'm giving you the last right of refusal. And what we found was other system integrators were always undercutting us. Some of those outcomes weren't great for them either. And around 2017, I started saying, okay, what can I do in this space which would give me either some incredible advantage or will help me pivot in another direction? And that's when we started exploring, hey, can we create our own products? And that was a bit random idea, I cannot create a product to compete with Cisco. And, these are the biggest names in the world for providing networking, CCTV cameras from like the Swedish and the Japanese. I was like, how can I compete with them in such a space? And that's when I did this experiment. I said, you know what, let me start picking up the low-hanging stuff, because I know everyone's manufacturing their product in Taiwan and China and all these places. So I actually went to Taiwan and spent a month just exploring factories where all of this equipment is produced. So I saw factories where Cisco and Juniper and all the biggest names in the system integration and networking world produce the equipment, with some of the biggest manufacturers that these guys produce the iPhone as well, the Foxcons of the world, essentially. So I went there, looked at their factories, I spoke with their, business development people. And it was interesting to find that obviously Foxconn said, oh, we need like a set plan for years and, massive volumes. And we've never heard of you. And obviously we can't work with you. So it was interesting.
Hey, a quick pause from the episode. I want to talk about a very special sponsor, CapitalBat. So this episode is for people wanting to buy a business or wanting to invest in businesses. So CapitalBat is the place where they meet. CapitalBat is the SMB investment platform that connects accredited investors with acquisition entrepreneurs. All that so more great small businesses end up in the hands of capable operators. If you're an investor yourself, you'll see curated opportunities with clear thesis, incentives aligned, and real operators at the helm. But if you're a searcher, you'll find capital partners who understand rate environments, covenants, and the grind of year one. Deals move faster when the right people find each other, and that's why we have CapitalBat sponsoring this episode. This is for accredited investors and acquisition entrepreneurs only. Nothing here is investment advice. You have to do your own diligence. So if you want to learn more about CapitalBat, go to capitalbat.com. I'll also put the link in the show notes so you'll find it easier. So again, capitalbat.com. And now back to the show.
Then I asked them, hey, could you refer me to someone who can do low volume and, maybe not your competitor, but maybe someone up and coming? So over a few beers, they referred me to this small factory, which was producing pretty decent equipment, but in a particular niche. They were producing industrial grade products only, right? And they said, that's pretty interesting, because in our system integration world, we do a lot of outdoor installations. We do a lot of stuff which is in extreme weather. And the first product I found was an industrial grade CCTV camera. This was like, you could put it up in a desert and it could last without any external cooling and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, man, would you be, can you manufacture for me? Because I have this project coming up and I can position this product in that project. And he's like, yeah, sure. How many pieces do you need? Our MOQ is like, which is minimum order quantity with the Chinese and the Taiwanese. They always ask this number. And I said, well, we need about 500 pieces. And he was like, oh, we need a minimum of 1,000. And I'm like, man, what is it going to take for you to produce 500 for me? He's like, maybe $1 more per camera. I'm like, sure, that's not a problem. Take it, And it was interesting. So that was my first project we started doing under our own private label product. And what I realized was these factories are making for the whole world. So there is no real intellectual property that most of these guys own. Yes, they might have some software elements that they own, but the hardware, there's not really too much going on there. And most of these guys have their own software which they can white label for you. So that was my first pivot where I started a company for producing industrial grade CCTV for our own projects. And over the next 3-4 years, we started growing that. And I think the brand name became quite popular. It became one of those makes which became approved in the system. And that was the first company that we kind of pivoted in that direction. And there was this great guy who was with me all this time. So he used to work at another one of those big companies. I used to be his customer. I mean, they would come to our offices. Like imagine like a sales manager who would come to your office from one of these leading companies, and good friend as well. And I said, hey, take his name as John. I said, John, I have this great product and I need someone to be the face of this company. Would you be interested? And he was like, man, I don't know about this. I have this great cushy job. And, how can I leave that? And so it was an interesting process to convince such a person to come and work and own this brand. But after a bit of coaxing, giving a bit of equity, I convinced this guy to come and work for me. And he became the face of this new company for 3 years and really helped us establish the credibility. And now the company is again doing great. So this was my first pivot. And like this, I started building more brands in the system integration space where I own the product. So what started happening is in the real world, in system integration projects, it came a time now, well, from past 2 or 3 years, where 80% of the equipment that we're putting in our projects is owned by us. And that gives us incredible leverage over pricing, gives us leverage over, what products to position. So using this strategy, we've essentially built a bunch of umbrella satellite products that actually service our system integration business. That was the core purpose of creating this. But as a side effect, what started happening was even the bids that we were not participating in, the bids we were not doing it, this product became quite well known in those other circles. So other contractors, other system integrators started buying from us. And what I realized was that I've created this sort of ecosystem of companies in this niche of mine, which I really understand well. And it was only from, I think, last year, I started thinking of this as, or maybe a couple of years, I started thinking of this as I own a portfolio of companies in this IT system integration building management space. And that's when I started repositioning, staff. I started thinking about how to optimize things and truly, really make them valuable from a market perspective. Because we were just happy in our own space, just selling and growing these companies, and we kept adding another product here and there. So today we have about 15 companies in our portfolio. About 7 of them are specifically product-based companies. The other 7, the 8th is my main system integration company, but the other 7 are smaller niche system integrators who specialize in a particular area. So for example, it would just be a fire system installer. They're the best at it and they're so good and they've got all the credentials. And so that's how we've kind of built our portfolio now. So the biggest bet that I'm about to take with a lot of those companies is a shared manufacturing facility. And obviously we looked at China, we looked at Taiwan, and we looked at all those, Vietnam, all these countries where we kind of decided to produce, at least partly produce them in India now. And we've just broken ground on a factory, and I mean, times are pretty interesting ahead. That's what my journey is till date. And in every company that we run, we use EOS. It's standard, non negotiable. We use EOS to run our company because it gives us the structure, it gives us the discipline, it gives us the tools. We don't have to reinvent meetings. We don't have to reinvent agendas. We don't have to reinvent how to run our quarterly planning, our annual planning, employee reviews, promotions, culture. I love it that if you have a business model which is viable, that means you're selling a product or service and there's a buyer for that product or service and there's a demand, EOS just works beautifully. Where it doesn't work are areas where the business model is not defined or you don't have product market fit. You're still trying to figure out what to sell in the market. In those times, it's not that useful because it forces you to be disciplined and consistent. And, it's about taking an existing business model and helping you scale that because of the discipline and consistency. But if your product market fit is not there, all these tools may not be as helpful compared to when your PMF is pretty clear. Yeah, and then recently what we've also done is taken our shared services division, which is essentially our HR, finance, marketing, all of those, marketing support. I wouldn't call it marketing, but marketing support as shared services and obviously accounting, bookkeeping. We've taken that and hived that off to a separate company. So we now provide shared services to other companies out there as well. It's kind of non-aligned with our strategy, but I think it just made business sense because we already had the processes and systems to duplicate that success. And we're seeing some good growth in that space as well. So that's where I am. I live in London and my teams are all over the world. The UK, got Middle East, India, China, and Taiwan. And so that's how we operate so far.
That's fascinating. Thank you for the deep dive. I have many follow-up questions. Starting from when you were struggling, so-called, you were stuck 3.5 to 4 million in sales and you couldn't grow. If you take like before and after, before implementing EOS and after implementing EOS, how was it? What changed? How you changed? What changes did you make?
Yeah, I think before EOS, it was this constant struggle where I was the one owning everything, like all responsibility. Customers would have me on speed dial. They would still call me, oh, there's this problem here. Can you just send someone? Right. And I was working weekends. I was stressed. And I think the biggest stress at that time for me was cash and cash flow, because we're profitable, but the payment cycles just are not that great in this industry. And, it's all, subject to how you execute, and certain dependencies come in and then your cash flow gets stuck. Did not really have a plan. We couldn't, if I remember there was a time where if we missed a customer payment that month, we would have not made payroll. And it was essentially very scary to me because every book I read and every, business coach or guru I spoke to said, oh, have at least 3 to 6 months of operating cash with you at all times, as a safety and as a measure. And deep down, I was guilty about it. And I knew that it's going to be quite tough if something, goes south. And what I also felt was, as we kept growing our team, I did not understand what a lot of the people were doing in the company. And we started throwing people to problems without really thinking and planning. I think we need someone in lead generation. Oh yeah, let's hire a couple of people, right? And who are they going to report to? How are we going to measure them? And, what's the meeting cadence? We had no idea.
Hey, one more quick break because I want to talk about another very special sponsor of this episode, Spacebar Studios. So if you're running a company, an investment firm, you need trust, you need deal flow, and you need talent coming to you. That's where Spacebar Studios comes in. They're a done-for-you newsletter service for different companies. They take care of the strategy, writing, design, and even the distribution. Imagine a crisp weekly or monthly update that makes sellers forward your name LPs feel informed, customers remember you, and candidates want to work with you. No more the bad feeling that we should write more. Spacebar turns your insights into consistent, compounding attention. They have a great team. The company is founded by two guys, David and Brandon, very smart marketers. And if you click the link today, or if you go to spacebarstudios.co and you book a free call with them, you will get the first few emails on the house for free. So again, go book a call, spacebarstudios.co, or click the link in the show notes. And whenever you have the call, tell them that Mick or HoldCo Builders or Private Equity Guy sent you. Now, back to the show.
And I swear to God, I remember in interviews, I would sit across someone who is a marketing lead gen specialist, and I'm asking them, hey, how would you do this? And how do you need to do this? So I myself had no idea what that guy would do, but I was interviewing people just fishing for ideas. I was like, yeah, I mean, how does this work? Tell me, how would you do this? And great questions which marketing folks ask is, yeah, tell me your ICP. And I'm like, well, we kind of do this and kind of do that and kind of do this. So I think what I've found after all these discussions and just introspecting about it as well, that the analogy that came to my mind at that time was like, I'm in this forest with an axe and I'm just chopping trees in any direction, right? So I'm trying to clear a path for myself, but all I'm doing is just going in circles, right? And because I don't know what my compass is, I don't know what I should focus on. I didn't have a long-term plan. For me, it was like, okay, in the projects business, the challenge is you just have to go get your next set of projects and get more pipeline, right? And it's still the same challenges. Nothing's evolved in that space. And so that's what I was constantly worried about. I was like, I just need to build bigger pipeline. I just need to win bigger orders, so I can just continue employing people and paying them salaries. And I read this book, Traction, which written by Gino, or was the founder of EOS. They sold the company to private equity, of all people. Interesting. And what I found was, there's nothing revolutionary in that book. It's all the stuff that I've read before, I've heard before, I've seen on social media before. But I love the way how they packaged it together. I love the way that, okay, when you're starting this, you start doing this, right? And this at that time was, the first thing for me was kind of defining an accountability chart, which just meant, in an ideal world, how many seats do I have in my business at my leadership level? Like, okay, do I have a seat for sales? Do I have a seat for marketing? Seat for operations, for finance, for HR and IT and admin? So you're just defining these functions that essentially help you run the business at the top level, at the leadership level, right? And when we did this exercise, I realized I was sitting on 5 of the 7 of those. So I'm sitting on sales. It's my job to get sales. It's my job to do marketing, my job for HR. And I had people who were doing a lot of this work, but they were like not leaders. They were just support staff. So essentially, I hired a lot of junior people just because of costs, because I thought, hey, that's cheap. I think I can afford this. And I hired people who were not the right people, and they didn't have the skill, the experience, the knowledge to run a full function. And I realized that I've got 7 different assistants, but I'm the owner of each and every function. And that's when it dawned on me, man, I don't think I can run this company this way. And I think that was like the EOS aha for me. It was like, ouch. Yes, I am sitting on all of those seats and I'm wearing all of those hats. Now, naturally, if I'm wearing 7 different hats or 5 different hats, some of the functions are going to get, sidetracked, or there'll not be enough attention in those areas. For me, I think big aha was, okay, how can I get out of the operations seat? Even though I had project managers, I was still sitting on that seat. And I was like, okay, that's the first thing I need to do, because that takes so much of my time, responding to calls, emails. And in this world, there are escalations, there are delays, and customers would like to speak with someone who has the authority just to calm them down. Pretty normal. and they would just want me in every meeting. They're like, oh yeah, call Sid. Why are you here? I mean, that's what they would say to my operations guy, who was essentially an assistant quality guy. And so that was the first seat. I said, I need to get someone really good to own this seat, who can run this and, open up my time. And it took me about 3 months to hire this person. But I think I'm lucky. I can just call it God's grace or whatever. But we used, clarity for the first time. So this is how it looked like. Before the interview, I had prepared a job spec, which is pretty normal. Everyone prepares, okay, this is what the job description is, right? What I did was I created a little scorecard. I said, okay, here are 5 to 10 numbers that I would want this person to own, like projects on time, stuff related to procurement, stuff related to turnaround times, escalations. So I created a little scorecard for these guys. And then I started looking for, in my ideal world, from which company, people from which company would have this experience. Because our space is pretty, I would say, small. They're like about, not too many companies. I would say under 1,000 in our area who would kind of do this. So it's easy to kind of shortlist the top 10, 20, 30 companies that you admire. So I picked a shortlist and I told my recruiter, I said, hey, this is the company, this is the measurement, and this is the job spec. Now, please find me the shortlist kind of candidates. And it was surprising. In the interview, I would ask those people, the shortlisted people, I was like, can you keep these numbers on track on a consistent basis? And I was very focused. I exactly knew what I wanted. And a lot of people disqualified themselves because they said, no, I don't think we can, your expectations for this are not realistic. And I heard lots of things. And finally, I met a guy who says, yes, this is doable, but it'll take me about 3 months to get to that stage. I need to get onboarded, ramp up, understand what's happening. And in 3 months, I can get you to this stage. And it was the first person who actually told me in the interview that I can make it happen. And I think I kind of fell in love with that answer. And I was like, yeah, that's good. Okay. And I like the guy. I think the culture element was there. My values are pretty simple. Values are simply about being professional and disciplined. And some people call it a cookie cutter value. But frankly, in our world, being professional and disciplined goes a long way in the system integration world. And I like his demeanor, his approach, his diction, his, how he carried himself. Because this is the person who's going to be in front of our customers, right? And all the time. And they need someone who's authoritative. And he kind of, perfectly fit the mold. Some of our other values are about urgency and ownership, right? So this is just about being, having that urgency and owning something and taking it to completion. And the last one is pretty simple core value. We call it over communicate. It's not about, it's yes, collaboration, all that stuff. But over communicate just means that just communicate, because people have stopped communicating and people just assume things, but we kind of just enforce that you have to over communicate. So I checked him on these 3 values in my head and I said, yeah, I think this guy kind of meets the mold for this sort of position. And we hired him, and now he is, that particular person runs 6 portfolio companies from an ops perspective today over the past, few years. Kind of elevated himself to the next level. So that was the first revelation back when I was struggling, is to kind of figure out how can I get some of my time back by delegating some stuff which I don't enjoy doing and I don't see myself doing it in the future as well. I was pretty good at it, but I didn't like doing it. And so ops was delegated. It took me about 3 to 4 months to be at 50% at ops myself, and over about 6 to 9 months to be at about, I would say, 80%. I still didn't let it go. I think that was just my FOMO or whatever you call it, because I started feeling a bit irrelevant that someone else is owning it and running it now, and they don't need my inputs all the time. It's a good problem to have. But I kind of fully let it go after a year or so, where it was on autopilot and they started running it. And all this time we're using EOS to run our meetings, to plan our quarterlies, to solve our issues, to, plan our annuals, to make sure that we're hiring the right people. And what I liked was, in most organizations, Ops is generally the, seat which has the most people reporting in most organizations, right? And it was imperative that this person that I hired adopted EOS as a philosophy and not just came up with his own system, because I didn't want to reinvent the wheel. So during the interview phase, I also shared that, hey, we run on this operating system called EOS, and it's just a simple way of running and managing our business and numbers and stuff. And I expect you to just get along and start using it. It's pretty simple. And I gave them a book at that time. It was called, what was it called? I think it was called What the Heck is EOS? Yeah. Essentially, it's called What the Heck is EOS, which is just like a very small primer about what EOS is, what are the tools, how do you use them, and stuff like that. And I was blessed that this person just adopted the whole philosophy and started using it and started running with it. And it became easier for us because whoever would get on operations exactly knew which meeting they had to attend, what was the structure of the meeting, how to get prepared for it, how to report, what numbers to have. So it took away a lot of the frustration and set up problems that a lot of companies face in how do I measure this guy that I've just hired, right? Because this has to be done before you hire the person. You already know what expectations you have from them, and you let them know at the interview stage that, hey, this is what we expect from you. Do you think you can deliver, right? And it made life a lot easy with a system in place, so we didn't have to think about, oh, how do I run this quarterly planning session, right? Oh, there's a little agenda, there are the tools, the book has everything that you need. And I'm a big fan of open source, and when I found out that Traction has everything available for you to run it yourself, I just did it myself. It was pretty simple, according to me. But I had the time and luxury as I evolved to go deeper and deeper into it, right? And around, I think, 2019 or 2020 is when I became certified in EOS, because I just wanted to go to that level of mastery so I could really help my portfolio companies just be outstanding in how they run their business. So the after EOS was, it opened up a lot of time for me. It allowed me to start thinking a little more strategically. It started, it helped me come to a point where I was like, okay, for the first time, I started thinking, where do I want to go with this business? Right. So I started working on the business rather than being in the weeds and, and just running it and the firefighting that I had to deal with on a daily basis. And my wife said it very aptly. She said it a few years ago that I think it just gave you a bit of breathing room to really think about what's next. And I think that was the transformation for me, essentially.
So if you take your day before implementing EOS and now a year, you said it took you 1 year to set it all up, to find this person, to make sure that he or she is capable of doing this. How was your day then? And did your portfolio grow during that time?
No, not at the portfolio didn't grow at that time. I was still trying to just get all the puzzle pieces together in that company. The next challenge I dealt with, so my day before hiring and implementing EOS was, we would do a quick daily huddle on some days about, hey, what's the plan for today, with some of the key projects that I was running. And I would miss the projects that were not that important because I didn't have the time to deal with those. And some days I would skip that daily huddle because I was busy in a sales call or in a meeting with a customer. So there was no consistency. So the no consistency. And I had always had a customer visit, site visit, travel to another city, or something planned every day. I was traveling 2-3 times a week to different cities because we were doing projects in different geographies. Sometimes it was, calls with the bank because, you're going to run out of cash pretty quickly. My accountant would call me and he's like, you need an overdraft limit now, right? So you need to get on a call with the bank and convince them as to why they should give you this limit. So it was like, constant firefighting. There was some fire to deal with every day. Now, the firefighting didn't go away when I hired this person. Only the operations fires went away, right? And I think it just gave me the confidence that, hey, what happens when you get an outstanding person who exactly knows what needs to be done, you give them a system to use, who can follow the system and just get stuff done, right? And that just convinced me that, I need to start doing that for my sales. I need to start doing that for my finance, for my HR, and for my marketing. Then I just took it on myself that it is my mission now to fire myself from every role that I own. Because I started thinking, imagine if I have 80% of my day, at least 6 hours or 5 hours of my day, where I can think about where do I take this business to. And I think that's just going to be transformational for me. And for the next couple of years, that was the goal. I said, how can I fire myself from everything that I'm doing today? And yes, it took about 2.5 years to do that. And that was around, I would say 2016, 17, where I was able to delegate pretty much everything that I was doing. And that's when this idea of building other companies came about, because it truly gave me this breathing room that, okay, now we are stuck here. Now about strategy. Okay, how can I, do a 10x leap? What is my 10x moment, right? How do I get there? I think the confidence I got was people in my company are following a structure. Meetings were happening on time, and it was cadence, right? And I would still attend the weekly meetings. But over a period of time, I became more of a spectator rather than someone who's running those meetings. And I think one challenge I see with a lot of founders is they don't like this, because you created something from scratch and you want to be in the thick of things. You want to be the one who takes all the decisions. I went through that phase, the fear of missing out sort of phase. And, I think recently I spoke with another founder who was trying to build this HoldCo setup, and I'm helping them, is they feel this loss of control, right? And for me, it's actually the opposite, because I feel I'm so much in control. I have the numbers of everything under the sun that I would like to look at. I exactly know with about 10 numbers that how this company is doing. And obviously, if it's not doing well, then I can roll up my sleeves and I can start working with the operators in that business to make sure that we take this to where we want it to.
Very good people are very expensive. What it all does for your portfolio when it comes to the profit margins? Because you previously said you had issues with cash flow. So maybe I would add another question here as well. Like, what changed with the cash flow if you implement the EOS? Yes, you said a lot of gurus have said to you, like, have this 3 to 6 months savings on the bank account just to make sure something happens. But what did you change actually to solve this issue?
Yeah, I think what happened with so EOS, I think, gave us the awareness. And there's this little exercise that we did years ago. It's called like cash flow drivers. I think the real name is the 8 cash flow drivers. And the exercise was pretty simple back then. It was, revenue is obviously vanity. It looks good. And, in our world, it's always good to have good revenue. And, everyone wants good revenue because it helps you with your valuations. Then you start looking at your profit, and profit is the sanity, right? That I need to be profitable because it's only my profit that fuels my purpose. Because if I'm not, profitable, I mean, all my grand vision and ideas go down the toilet because I can't do anything. And the third part is the cash, which is the reality. Wildly profitable, but if I don't have cash in the bank, it's all in, just in my P&L statement or income statement, right? So just starting with this awareness, we said, okay, how can we increase our revenue, right? I mean, how do you increase profit? You have higher revenue, lesser costs, less expenses, have higher profit, simple, right? I mean, I discounted this exercise back then because I'm a numbers guy and I found it to be very elementary and basic, right? The interesting part of doing this was everyone else in the business, besides the finance guy, wasn't numbers driven. They were like more operations or sales. They didn't really understand how, the P&L works. And I think it was a big revelation for them to understand little things that eventually compound, right? And one of the things was, oh, can we put a clause or kind of in our RFP say that if we finish this project earlier, we get this upside? Right, so people started coming up with interesting ideas. And if we get paid faster, we'll give you a cash discount of like 2-3%. So one end, you're decreasing the profitability, but you're increasing cash flow. And in our case, it absolutely made sense to decrease the profit but get our cash up front, because it gave us the breathing room to pick up more projects actually and just be, profitable that way. So we took these calls, and some of those ideas came from this tool and others came from just common sense. So, for example, in our bids, we started putting a clause for payment terms. So, most RFPs have a standard clause that you get paid in 60 days or 30 days or 50 days. And we started giving a counter argument that, hey, if we do this in 30 days, we are happy to give you a 1% discount or stuff like that. We started asking for secured credit terms rather than unsecured. With our vendors, we started building credit limits because of trust and credibility. We never asked them. For years, we've been working with them, and it was just a little conversation with one of the distributors where we said, hey, can we extend our terms from 30 days to 90 days? And we kind of said it like scared that they were just going to run out of the room. And they said, yeah, sure, no problem. We can do that for you. And so a lot of times we just took things for granted. And I think just getting the awareness to go back to the people and negotiate terms was a big thing for us. A lot of times in the beginning, people would ask us for, bank securities because they said, hey, we've not worked with you. We can't give you products without security. And so we came up with innovative ways. We started using insurance rather than giving a bank credit. So there were some innovative ideas that popped up around that time, which truly helped us with cash flow, because earlier we never thought about it. Earlier, we just took the status quo and just ran with it. And we said, yeah, that's how it is, and we can't really do anything. And I think the biggest pivot came was when we started using our own product lines in the projects, because our margins just, exploded exponentially, essentially. And that, it's a double-edged sword. Yes, you become super profitable. And yes, it's not that great for cash flow because, again, we use the same philosophy, because when you're buying stuff from the Chinese and the Taiwanese and, the Indian manufacturers, especially in the beginning, they expect 100% payments in advance for all the stuff that you produce. So again, that was one big challenge for us in managing cash, because you're paying someone 100% upfront for something that's going to get recovered in 90 days, right? How do you scale this model then, right? You're going to run out of cash. So that was a big challenge. And we had to go through, personally putting my house as a security to take loans from banks. Took some wild decisions here to kind of fund that, because I had conviction that this is going to work. I borrowed heavily from the alternate markets, because banks, we had maxed our limits, and we would pay high interest loans to fulfill this as well. Short-term, high interest loans, which a lot of us finance people call bridge capital now, essentially. How else we improved our cash flow? Yeah, I think that's about it. Those are some of the ideas at that time we used to swing the things in our favor. And I think one of the things I said that high profit is a double-edged sword, because when things are good and wildly profitable, you let go, or you kind of drop the ball for little things, and expenses start creeping up. And I see this time and time again in my portfolio companies, which are profitable, and expenses start creeping up. So, I just have a cadence of a monthly P&L review line item wise, where I'm just kind of looking at trends across companies as to how they're performing. And it's pretty easy to spot where things are not working in the direction as to, what's the variance over the budgets and stuff. So, yeah, just trying to be a little grounded and not go crazy even when we are profitable.
Can we say that your success story is a result of implementing EOS?
So I think from an operation,
obviously you have all the skills and capabilities of doing this, but I mean, like, you actually making it all happen, like,
sure.
percentage wise, maybe how much would you give to this system?
Yeah, I would attribute, I would have not been running a holding company structure or having multiple companies if it was not for EOS, for sure. Because I don't think I am smart enough or intelligent enough to figure out a system to holistically run a business with all moving parts, because I don't have that time, right? And my job is to run the business, right? And my job is not to reinvent the wheel as to how to run the best meetings, how to treat people, how to build culture. I mean, some of them are common sense, but when you put together a structure behind it, then even though you might get it in your head because you might be super smart, but the person that you're hiring, you can't expect them to reinvent the wheel again with their teams. So you just pass them a structure which is documented, publicly available. There are lots of experts in this field. So my question to people who challenge me sometimes in my HoldCo setup is like, Sid, I mean, I used to work at Honeywell or I used to work at Cisco and we did it this way. I'm like, that's brilliant, but we will do it this way. That's it. I'm not negotiating on that part because I don't want another complication in my life. And I said, this is a structure which is proven. It might be proven for 100,000 other companies in the world, but it only works if it works for me, right? And it works for me. So I'm going to use this and I will, and now with anyone we speak with, partner or, get them on board or, a buyout sort. I mean, that's a non-negotiable clause essentially that you will run on this system and structure. So if the system wasn't there, I would not have the structure and the profitability that I have. But I think another big attribution to this is just the kind of people that are in my org. Without them, obviously, we'll not be where we are today.
When you take your friends, fellow entrepreneurs who have seen your journey, your growth, that obviously you see the before and after. When Sid was struggling a bit and when he's crushing, opening new companies, did those people come to you asking what you did and hearing what you said and what maybe made it happen? Did they start to implement this as well?
So it's funny. I think a lot of people have come to me lately in the past, couple of years asking for this because I've still been under the, the surface. I'm not out there beating the drum about my HoldCos or about all this stuff. A lot of people ask me that, hey, why do you help companies implement EOS? I said, well, I only help very specific sort of companies look at EOS. I don't do work with anyone because I don't have that much time. But yeah, if you're in this space doing this kind of thing, what I've done, I'll help you, right? Mm-hmm. And I can only do this because I have the time to do it. And I'm not in a firefight. I'm not bogged down with every little detail that used to hold me back about 8-10 years ago. So a lot of them are, they don't understand the amount of effort and time and discipline that has gone in to get to this stage. And everyone wants a magic pill or a silver bullet. Back in the day, we could talk the same about weight loss, but now we do have a magic pill or Manjaro or whatever. But in running companies and scaling and getting them, so many factors and so many variables now, which can totally destroy a company. And I think using a structure is just one thing that I say is an insurance against some of the things. It can't protect you 100%, but you can't go wrong if you have a good, stable model.
Now, when we take your portfolio, there are 15 companies.
Yeah.
If I understood correctly, you grow it from 3.5 to 40 million now, right? The portfolio-wise.
That was just the system integration company, yeah. So portfolio, I think from a revenue perspective would be around 76, 77 million. So yeah.
Okay. Did you acquire any companies or it's all organic?
All of them have been organically grown over the past 10 years. Yeah. So 7 years, right? 20, 25, 8 years.
Why haven't you bought any? Because you found something super interesting, which is like EOS. It works like magic. Now, I guess you talk to fellow entrepreneurs. Many of them do like bolt-on, add-on acquisitions. Why haven't you done any?
Because now this is the stage where we're going to start doing that now. Earlier, so it's interesting. I mean, when I was thinking about this last year, and I asked this question that, hey, is it easier, faster, quicker to just acquire someone? It is, right? I mean, it's common sense. But in the product space, it's actually not. In the product space, especially in hardware, there are very few companies that are doing the old school hardware manufacturing anymore, right? And because everything's gone over SaaS, everything's moved over to software. The hardware, and especially industrial B2B sort of hardware space, there is there are very few new startups that are coming up in that space, and a lot of them are coming up in China for sure, because their hardware ecosystem is the best in the world. You cannot beat their hardware ecosystem. And I've seen it in India. I've seen, well, Taiwan, I would say, is equally great. India is getting there. Vietnam's pretty good. So in the West, it's difficult to build a hardware first organization today, right? Because we just don't have the ecosystem. So a lot of my products were traditional products which have not been disrupted over lots of years. So cameras, there's been very little disruption in the industrial B2B camera space. The disruption has been there in the software space, analytics and AI and all that stuff. But you still need a device that captures it efficiently using the right protocols, right bandwidth, right lens, and all that stuff. So, not much innovation there. What we're looking to do now is buy into some software companies, because I feel that that's the missing piece for us to really take our valuations to the next level, because that's where the valuations are. And VCs and PE love software and love the predictability of it. That being said, we're also actively looking at two companies right now to acquire, which are in the services space, essentially, system integration in the audiovisual world. That's a space that we've been trying to get into, but we can't do it organically. So we're looking to buy companies who are, professional AV installation companies. They install boardrooms, conference rooms, and stuff like that for organizations. So we're actually looking to buy those out in a couple of geographies.
When is it too early? When is it too late, maybe, to implement EOS? Because maybe there are some people listening. They're like, "Oh, that's fascinating. I would like to be like Sid in 5 or 7 years' time. Currently running a small business which does, let's say, 3-4 million in revenue, and now today, like many years later, it's 77 million portfolio. So, is it ever too early, too late? What's your thought?
No, I think it's when I started running EOS, I thought we were too late to implement it. I think we just had so many bad habits that were built in. And I think when EOS, with their tools, we had to do certain stuff in this cadence and discipline. That was the biggest annoying thing. That, oh, again, Monday morning meeting at 9 o'clock sharp. That doesn't work because, I'm still in bed, or stuff like that. I wish I had started running it very much earlier in my entrepreneurship journey. So, to anyone who's listening, I think the right time is when you are really struggling, or when you feel that something's not working, right? And what's interesting about EOS in any tool, is, I mean, there are other competing operating systems as well. So it doesn't matter which one you use. If you pick one of those operating systems, you truly have to be of the mindset that you want some change to happen in your organization. Because, what got you, to where you are is not going to get you to where you want, right? Something's missing, right? And if you feel overwhelmed, if you're struggling with firefighting mode all the time, you need a business operating system. And I mean, I can only speak for EOS because I've kind of spent almost a decade of using it and, teaching it, that it is a system that works. What EOS says is that it is this is the official language where they say people, companies running between 10 to 250 people is their sweet spot, right? And where the founders are growth oriented and open minded. And like I said, they're more afraid of the status quo than of change. So that's the right target market. But that being said, I know of an architect who runs a 2-person practice who picked up the book, and is running his 2-person company on EOS, and he loves it. So it works for everyone.
When do you know it's the right time to build the product yourself? Find a manufacturer and then start using these instead of just keep using the ones you bought from your current suppliers?
That's a very tough question. For me, I was desperate because if I did not build this product, we would be pretty much wiped out, or we would have no margins. We would have had no scale. So if anyone who's using other products, and that is a substantial portion of their variable costs, I would explore it. And in our case, this was the single biggest cost for our projects, buying other people's stuff. So it was an existential question, because if my projects is for $100, $60 or $70 is I have to pay someone else to buy their gear, right? And these guys control the pricing. They can decide, oh, you know what, there are new tariffs. Oh, so you have to pay 20% more, but my RFP doesn't account for that. So I didn't want to leave control at someone else. I was just trying to get to the part where, how can I control this outcome in the best possible way? And even with people in the software world now, people have started using AI tools to build their own solutions now. I think it's never been easier to build your own product. So I'm a big proponent of go build your own stuff and own the IP. Then if you own the IP, you control the pricing. And that's how you get profitable.
So some time ago, I did a research on a gentleman called Fernando de Leon. He runs a Leon Capital Group in US. Started 20 plus years ago. Today he's still young. He's 47, but he did very similar thing to you. Like he started building products in-house, and once the product worked, in his case, he had those dental clinics, and he saw that the economy got tough, and banks didn't maybe finance the purchases anymore, dental services. So he was like, I'm gonna create my own financing in-house. So he did that, and then he started expanding to other services as well outside of his portfolio, and he did this exact same thing with insurance. So, and I see you doing this as well, but why I'm telling this story is obviously, first of all, you should maybe go and listen. His name is Fernando de Leon, built a huge portfolio, they've done 500 plus acquisitions. So as you're getting into this, maybe you get some ideas from there. But what he did was he tested the thing before inside his portfolio. This was his edge because he had customers coming in. So the question to you, for how long you keep using your products yourself before you start selling to the outside market?
Oh, we've started selling already. I think we start selling. So essentially, we start using them internally, and start building a team around it then. So essentially, we need a certain set of people to sell products in our space. You need someone in sales, you need someone in operations, you need someone in product marketing, and all the other stuff is shared services. So it typically takes us anywhere between 6 months to 12 months to go, essentially, I wouldn't say public is the wrong word here, but start selling it to other people. That's the minimum time. And we're just doing this right now with a couple of products in the fire space, the sprinkler and alarm space. And it's interesting that you mentioned this gentleman, because we recently got a license for insurance and financing. And one of the things we're looking at is financing our channel, our ecosystem, people who buy our products. So we are looking at some financing play, but I'm fascinated by what you said, and I'm going to read more about this gentleman, because we don't take any outside funds as of now. It's all organic. But now we've gotten to a point where I need to build a little base so I can grow a little faster. So I might be creating a little fund where I solicit capital and I deploy it for faster growth. Yeah.
Yes, and it was pretty, as you have those different products you are manufacturing yourself, you start seeing some things are selling more than others, and you can maybe put more effort and capital into growing this, because that was the case for him as well. He bought some struggling real estate buildings, and the only companies which were signed up and become customers were those dental clinics, and he saw the numbers, how well they're doing. So he went and talked to those owners. Hey, I have a bunch of real estate around US. Let's start opening up new clinics, and that built that grew into like the main business, which worth billions. So you have the same type of information coming to you all the time. Like you see what type of products selling less, what type of more, and maybe in that way you can expand. And who knows, maybe one of those products eventually will do more in sales than the group if you find the hot thing, you know.
Absolutely. There's always the the wishful thinking and the optimist in me. And that's what keeps me excited to be in this space, because it's just about looking at how can I maximize growth and what's in the future for those organizations now. So
When it comes to maximizing growth and your own ideas on capital allocation, and maybe how have you changed over time? Because opening a new product line, it must be pretty expensive. So you will know that you will get the capital who knows when in the future. So how have your own mindset changed when it comes to being extremely patient with those returns coming in based on the decisions you're making today?
we're pretty agile in this space, actually. And what we do is we create all the collateral for a product and all the technical and all the stuff that is required for us to start pitching those products. But we only start manufacturing once we get orders. So it's on demand, and the inventory is always low for us because it's a B2B product. And after first few sales cycles, we can predict just a little bit about our inventories as to how much is required. So that's where the capital allocation head comes in, as to what inventory do I want to plan for the next 3 to 6 months, because these are very high tech equipment which takes 6 weeks for a manufacturer to produce for us. So we have to be pretty good in predicting what the market wants and what's our pipeline. So I feel that a lot of my capital allocation today goes in inventories for these product lines. And pretty much we've been very disciplined and done a decent job. But there's always room for improvement. And we're trying to use some interesting software to predict now. God knows how that's going to change our our capital allocation. But that's one area. And I think that's where I'm looking to kind of create this fund, which will, de-risk some of my personal capital and, the corporate capital that we've accumulated over the years. And then I can, maybe sleep a little more peacefully, knowing that I've secured myself to what I want in my capital allocation personally. So there are times I'm still taking personal bets using personal capital for stuff which I find interesting, but I would like to stop doing that. And I'll still use it, but I would need the backing of other people, and that's why I want to create this fund. So that's the next 18 to 36 months of my time, is I'm trying to put together this little fund to scale this and add more companies to the fold.
It's interesting because I've had few guests who on a specific period decided to partner up with a PE firm.
Yeah.
And the results in one case have been, in both cases, actually, one grew, I think, from 15 million to 200 million. And in the second case, they today have done like 29 acquisitions, but they partnered up with a PE when it was just an acquisition number 2.
Interesting.
So they grow from 20 million to a billion within the next 4 years. And these episodes, you will find them on HoldCo Builders podcast. So my question to you maybe, have you ever thought of maybe selling part of your business to a PE to partner up with them to really go through this super aggressive growth to whatever you want to accomplish? Because, I mean, that's maybe one idea.
We've not very actively explored it. I have lots of friends in the PE space and I keep chatting with them, but I've never had like a formal conversation with anyone. What we are very keen right now is a couple of our companies are at a stage where we could put them in an like an alternate exchange, not the primary, but an alternate exchange to monetize it. And so with 2 of them, we're exploring partial public listing in those exchanges. where we'll divest at least 30% of those companies. But yeah, I mean, I've not explored the PE angle where I partner with someone. But that during my process of fundraise, if that's a more viable option, I 100% will consider that as well. And I'm blessed that I have some people who are in the PE space in my network. And it'd be always great to get ideas from them as to how it would look if one were to partner with them, especially people which have a longer investment horizons.
Yeah, because what you do definitely works. And I guess they are very eager to deploy capital. And obviously, for you, you have to do your own background checks and things like this on the funds. This is what I learned from the previous guest on HoldCo Builders who sold his company to PE as well. And the interesting structure in a way that he got like 85% cash today, and the other 15 he made more money in, I think, in the next 3-4 years with this 15%.
Wow.
Than he did with the cash. So they, with the right partner, things like that are possible. So maybe this is something to discuss and maybe think about when thinking about the next maybe 5-10 year plan.
Yeah. No, 100%, Mick. I think I got lots of ideas just by chatting with you, and they're like things that are popping in my head right now. It's like, huh, yeah, I didn't think about that. And so I think it's just been great to just hear your stories as well about other people and what they're up to.
Yeah, because that's how it's been. There has been many great conversations with people who have been maybe going through what you've done, but I can see you're in this very interesting phase where you still own majority, as I understand correctly, but you have all those small manufacturing buildings, all those products you create yourself. So this is a very interesting space, and I think with the right partner coming on board, it could lead to maybe 10xing the business. Like you know this better. I want to respect your time. Two quick fire questions. What's the best investment advice you've ever received, and what is your favorite book?
Best investment advice I've been receiving from a friend that I've seen go crazy in crypto. So I am very long on Bitcoin. So it's one of my favorite areas to invest in. And so I continue to slowly accumulate or trying to get into this crypto space and buy more Bitcoin and, allied products. Best book I have read is a guy called James Altucher. He wrote this book called Choose Yourself, and it's a simple book about been doing stuff what other people are telling me to do, but for a change I chose myself and back myself to do what I want. And that was like one of those pivotal books I read in, I think, 2013 or 14, which kind of transformed my thinking about and just kind of changed my confidence and perspective. It's a brilliant book. It might sound a little cliched and self-helpish, but the message of the book is very solid, and highly recommend to people to read it. So yeah.
I would have one more question. To have maybe 5 minutes?
Yeah, sure, shoot.
You've been implementing this EOS on your business, but again, what about yourself in your own life? Like, how has your beliefs and actions maybe changed over time? Because I think this is oftentimes even more important, because when the leader doesn't grow, it's hard to improve the business. So how has it been in your case, the EOS on your own life? What has changed?
I think it's been absolutely transformational. And I think what I do now is, I think it's similar to Ikigai. And I think a lot of people in the EOS world call it the EOS life as well. And essentially what it means is doing what you love with people that you love, making a difference in the community or your ecosystem, getting compensated appropriately for the time that you spend. And lastly, it is about having time to pursue your other passions and hobbies. So these 5 things. And I think I am in like equilibrium when I'm aligned with those 5 things, where I have time to, play golf with my son and daughter who are 14 and 12, take little vacations to Spain when we can, and just have a great time playing golf. Help my wife. She's been wanting to do a PhD and, a master's in art. She couldn't because two young children, business needs. I needed her to be with the children. Now she has the time to do this and now she's pursuing it. And I'm so happy because I can actually afford to not, I can afford to sit at home and take care of my children and work remotely while she's in a university. So I think the personal transformation for me has been to value my time, to really say no to stuff rather than say yes to everything that comes my way. And also, the key thing is really enjoy working with the people that I work with. Because if I don't like someone and I've got something going on in my head against them, it'll never be successful. So that's why choosing the right partners and right suppliers and the ecosystem has really helped me kind of transform for sure.
Sid, this has been very special episode, honestly. Thanks a lot for sharing your story. I'm more than 100% sure people want to reach out to you to ask maybe a few questions. So maybe you can share where can people find you if they would have some questions about EOS, about personal growth, about your businesses, manufacturing, you name it.
Yeah, just reach out to me on LinkedIn, Sid Jashnani. Hopefully, there's only one of me. And just connect with me. And I'm always happy to share my journeys and experiences. And I can probably connect you with some great EOS implementers as well, who can help you in your journey for sure. So.
Fascinating. Again, thanks a lot for doing this, and yeah, let's do it again in the near future when you're maybe going through the conversations with PE funds. I would like to hear how did it go.
Amazing. Mick, thank you for your time and appreciate it.